Going live, and we're live, folks. Got a green for my sound machine. Picture's looking okay. If anybody's out there, say hello. We're just on a wee moment early, just to check that everything's working okay. Sometimes it doesn't. Oh, no, that way. There we go. Sorry about that. Just trying to adjust things a wee bit there. Yeah, so if anybody's out there, we're just going to get ready for our book club tonight. Chapter 25 of Children of Dune will start at 10 o'clock. And yeah, not too bad a wee chapter tonight. It's another action driver, I think, that serves to build a bit of tension and move things along, you know. And I've just been having a wee bit of a read around some Frank Herbert stuff there at the minute, but I'm hoping, as I'm always still hoping to get something done here and get on with the correspondence. It's just swamped me. Anyway, there we go, folks. There's 10 o'clock. I'll say hello. Hi there, folks. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as The Doghouse. And this is our Children of Dune book club, where we're working through the 6 Dune novels of Frank Herbert, chapter by chapter, until we get to the very end. So it's a bit of a monumental task, to be honest with you. But I think there's plenty of other book clubs out there that sort of deal with things in a bit more easier going way. But we are literally picking this thing apart and annotating it. So it's certainly, I'm learning a lot that I didn't know about before. Picked up all sorts of things, and it's an interesting way to work at the book. And it's a sort of also an interesting way to see how little that the Herbert estate has looked after Frank Herbert's works. I think, you know, just in terms of sheer vast amounts of errata in books. Got a little bit in this chapter, but not too much. There's Carlos Crescelius saying, "Hey Doc, gentle folk, how you doing, Carlos? Hope you're keeping well." It's nasty out. We've had a good 3-4 days of ridiculously nasty weather here. Sky's so grey that it looks like static off a TV, if you know what I mean. It's been pretty cold, but yeah, I hope you folks are keeping well. Hope you're doing well, Carlos. Always nice to have you here, sir. So, yes, indeed. Let me just get myself organised here, folks. Doing a bit of tutoring and so on today. And let's just get our chapter open. Hopefully for next week, chapter 26. This is chapter 25 we're doing tonight. Chapter 26 is pretty short. Chapter 27 isn't too long. So that's going to be, hopefully for next week, it's going to be the first of our, we've done a couple of these actually already. But we're about to run into, I've sort of made a wee note of all the different chapters that we can double up. So 26 and 27 for next week, hopefully we'll run at 2 chapters because the first one of those is quite short. And we should be able to fit both of them in, which is nice when we can do that. I think it moves us along a little bit quicker. We're heading towards, let's see, where are we at? We're heading towards the halfway point, I suppose. We're not there yet with this book. But as always, it's just I'm really keen to get towards God Emperor, to be honest with you. You know, floods and cold weather here, says Carlos, but past my home over, thankfully. Good. Yeah, we got battered by Storm Eowyn, which was pretty intense, to be honest with you. I've not experienced a storm like that before. Not here, but we had close to 120 mile an hour winds. Bit of our fence came down, but apart from that, the house is pretty solid, you know. And we're a sort of bungalow here, so we don't have, you know, an extra floor to worry about. There's Bojack Harkness saying hello. Hi, Bojack, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, weather's been a bit full on at the minute. There's all sorts of interesting things going on in the world. I think one of the most interesting ones at the minute is the whole series of I don't know what you would call it, micro earthquakes or small earthquakes under about 5 in the Richter scale over at the Santorini caldera in Greece. That's kind of interesting. Santorini is where ancient Thera would have been, I believe. Is that correct? And I've got nothing on this here. I'm just running from my old memory. It's one of the possible sites. One of the possible sites for Atlantis, interestingly enough, which I think is fascinating. But it's also the Santorini caldera is also one of those what we would call an event marker, if you like, because of the volcanic explosion. Allows us to sort of date lots of things because of, I suppose, the volcanic eruption be ending up in all sorts of things like tree rings and things like that, you know. So it's kind of interesting to see that at the minute. And I think they're speculating that there's I haven't managed to get a good read at this stuff yet, but I think they're speculating that there might be a big underwater volcano about to go off, but I was just looking at the little ripples all over the data charts. How many little earthquakes are going on. Interesting times, as they say. Everybody's got something going on, I think. Well, here we are, chapter 25. Let's start with the prologue or the epigraph. Sorry, shall we? I think this will be a quick little chapter. It's another what I would call an action driver. It's moving the action forward. It's going to build a little bit of tension as well. And it's also going to tell us where we're going to go with this. And the tension that it builds, there's a little bit of tension in here. And it's a kind of non-event, if you like. It's what breaks this chapter up. I think what's really important about it is trust. I think is the interesting thing in this chapter. But we can have a wee look at it. So here's our epigraph, just to start. And it's aimed at the Bene Gesserit. Now, you Bene Gesserit, call your activity of the Panoplia Prophetica a science of religion. Very well. I, a seeker of another kind of scientist, find this an appropriate definition. You do indeed build your own myths, but so do all societies. You, I must warn, however, you're behaving as so many other misguided scientists have behaved. Your actions reveal that you wish to take something out of, and in brackets, away from, life. It is time you were reminded of that which you so often profess. One cannot have a single thing without its opposite. And this is from the preacher at Arrakis and a message to the sisterhood. So this is a warning to the Bene Gesserit from the preacher, from Paul. And I suppose that the reminder is suggesting that if you want to take something out of life, time you're reminded of that which you so often profess, you can't have a single thing without its opposite. The opposite would be life will take something out of you. Well, actually, the opposite would be life will take nothing. If we went for a true opposite, then it would be death would take nothing from you. But in this sense, it's life will take something from you, I think. But it's all things have their equal and opposite. I suppose. I know that's not, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, isn't there? That kind of thing. Yeah. So some interesting little things here. Science of religion. I would call that. Well, I don't know if I would call it that at all. I don't know if you could have a science of religion. Science meaning knowledge, religion meaning something that you adhere to. I suppose you could, if you like. It ends up being a very, very broad term. Now, I wasn't sure. Oddly enough, the other thing I was wondering about was I was checking the way I've done my work with these books. Whenever I was working at Dune, the first book, I was annotating it by putting the notes into the book. And at a certain point, I think it was for Dune Messiah. Let me see. I'm not actually 100% sure. Let me just double check this. No, at some point within the Dune book, I decided to write out the whole thing. I didn't do it with the first volume of notes there. And then as I've been going, so all of Dune Messiah is written out in my notebooks, and I'm writing out each chapter as we go. If you see what I mean. I have a point. Oh, yes. So I'll occasionally wonder about words and have I missed them? And usually we're quite good at this. I'm pretty sure I had described what the Panoplia Prophetica meant. But just in case we didn't, I didn't, sorry. Let's just quickly explain it. So a panoplia or a panoply. Panoply is from a Greek word. Pan is all, everything across. The second part of that word, the oplia bit, comes from hopla or hoplan, which is where we get the Greek word for hoplite. Hoplan is full set of armor. And so in modern English, if you want a panoply, which would be spelled Panoply, is it can be a full set of armor, like a full set of plate armor, that kind of thing. Let me see, did I have something that I could demonstrate? There we go. Got one. Pardon me. Let's see. Oh, arches. Oh, I love this book. It's a reverse dictionary. This makes it occasionally. There you go. That will be a panoply of armor. There, full set, if you like. That's a panoply of armor. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's a great book. Reader's Digest, Reverse Dictionary, interesting little book. But a panoply is also a full collection of things. So if you had like a full collection of someone's books, you could argue you've got a panoply of their works, that kind of thing. Pardon me. Propheticus, again from the Greek word propheticas, into the Latin propheticus, is the ability to prophesize, predict, or be prescient. So that's what that's all about, the panoplia prophetica. A complete set of things, if you like, to deal with prophecy, but they call it the science of religion. There we go. Carlos is saying, I'm less worried about the weather, more about our idiot president antagonizing the world. Oh, I wouldn't worry about him too much, Carlos. We have an idiot prime minister here. And generally, I don't know, I get the sense that government is pretty stupid these days, and has been for some time. So it's more of a question of welcome to the club, I think, on us. You know. But yeah, he's certainly an interesting character. I try my best to sort of avoid Trumpisms and stuff like that. But yeah, hand power over all that power in one person's hand, I think, is a bit crazy, you know. And there's Have a Mixed Speech. Howdy, Doc. Big Dune fan here. Love Children of Dune. And Bojack saying, agreed, Carlos. Oh, what about the weather? More about our idiot president antagonizing the world. Okay, as much as he's poking over here, isn't he? He's having a go at Europe and Britain and so on, and everybody's in the back foot. And to be honest with you, Britain has been sucking the phallus of America for quite some time. Sorry for putting it that way, but it's true. And I don't know. I think trade and commerce, all these sort of things, but certainly how he's going about his business, you know, it's threatening, intimidating, bullying, and America and Britain can be, you know, not just to pick America, can be quite good at that kind of thing. The best thing to do to a bully is stand up to him, you know, which a few countries I think will do. But you could end up with all sorts of trade tariffs working back against the United States, you know. It'd be a great Harkonnen, says Carlos. Well, the son's called Baron, isn't he? There is something a wee bit about the Harkonnens about the Trumps, I think, you know. But yeah, you know, we're all pretty smart people on here. You can see propaganda, you can tell a fake when you see one, you know. But he's I know people like him, you know. You can put people like that in a room with him, and you can, like myself, and you'll leave him on his own and put a camera on us, and we'll see what happens. But but I'd make mincemeat out of him, and I'm bigger than him, so there you go. But he uses his size to bully people too, doesn't he? But yeah, he's a typical bully. Someone should pull him down. But he's a politician now, isn't he, as well? Oh dear. But yeah, American politics really is it's all over the world, isn't it? And it is looking a little bit imperialistic at the minute. The only thing I would say in relation to the United States of America is if you pay attention to history, what Trump wants is you don't want that, because it will destroy your country eventually. As if you want to go imperial over expansion, taking in too much territory, it'll wreck you. It wrecks everybody. And all empires fall, you know. But I'm fascinated by America, Carlos, because it's so big a place. You know, to have citizens in one country that's basically a continent, you know, that it takes you thousands of miles to go across from one end to the other. It's fascinating in some ways. But I've always looked at America's great strength, to me personally, just as its diversity of culture. It's a diaspora. You know, you've got all sorts of people living there, and I always thought that, you know, we got about 90% of our TV in Ireland and Northern Ireland came from America when I was growing up. Probably still does. You know, that was the great thing. I always saw a lot of positive things about American culture, although you know, often presented very gritty, dark things as well. But it just seemed like a great melting pot. I always thought that was a good thing, you know. Bojack seemed to be a great hardcore, hilarious, laughing. There's Have a Mixed Speech. Been listening for a few weeks. Enjoy your takes. Thanks very much. Have a Mixed Speech. Yeah, we're on a big long book club here. It's probably the biggest of all the Dune book clubs. We're doing one chapter at a time, and we're absolutely pulling it to pieces. For the love of the thing, though, I have to say, as much as we find quite a lot of problems within the books, they're more to do with publishing, to be honest. Kind of feel sorry a bit for Frank Herbert's books in the state that they're in at the minute, to be honest with you. That's where I would go with it. But no, thanks very much for joining us. And we have a great wee audience here. Have a mixed speech. Some really smart people contributing to this. So it's not just me. But thanks very much for joining us. And if you want to catch up, there's a hell of a lot of videos. But this is our third one. We've never really done book clubs before, have a mixed speech. So it's all new to me. So I just figured this was the best way to do it so that I wouldn't A, make a total fool out of myself, and B, that we would do our best to understand it, I think, to grok it in fullness. And Christopher cried, "Hey, Christopher," I said, "Well, the Dune series did teach about the dangers of a charismatic leader." Yes, whenever I did my videos way back when, I put in some examples of the ones that Frank Herbert was talking about. I included Trump as being a contemporary one, and I put in. I even put in a Kennedy. I put Ian Paisley in from Northern Ireland as well. But yes, charismatic leaders. Charisma is not. Charisma goes a long way, doesn't it? But it's not. It's not ability. It's not intelligence. As much as you hope he's got lots of people advising him, that's kind of thing. But he doesn't strike me as a very intelligent man at all. He doesn't strike me as a very wise man, and he certainly doesn't strike me as a very compassionate man. If you see what I mean. But if you're going to run a country, you need to do it for your people. And I hope that your people elected you to do a good job for them. But it does look like most governments work for the middleman, the middle business, if you like, is they want all your tax money, that kind of thing. That's the way it works here. And the only good thing I would say about it was maybe the shake-up of government. Our government, local, we just chatted about this with my wife. All government departments here are just incredibly wasteful because they don't care. It's not their money, so what the hell, But the general thing is here: if you work for the government, you charge them 5 times whatever you would charge a normal person, because they're the government. Does that make sense? I've worked for them here. I've done gigs for them. I've actually done a gig for the government here in a hotel for a whole bunch of rich golfers, and the council people came up and asked us to shut up. So we took their money and played no music, and all the golfers wanted to hear us play. So after that point, we if we ever get a gig with the government or council, anything like that, local government, you charge them 5 times as much, and you don't do what they want, basically. But there's always something. But I think a lot of governments are the same, to be honest with you. Here, I'm off on one. But don't be worrying about it. This is the thing. Our governments do make a real mess of things, but often I find it personally, it doesn't affect me, if you see what I mean. And it's more our fears, I think, sometimes. But saying that, you've got a president who's looking to deport about, what is it, 11 or 12 million people? It's going to affect people, isn't it? But the world's a crazy place at the moment, folks. Now, so that's our Panoplia Propheticus, and this is a warning. The other thing is that he's identifying, I think it's interesting here, is that the Bene Gesserit are identified as scientists, in a sense. And of course, what we do understand about the Bene Gesserit is that they masquerade as a religious order, but that their real purpose is politics, not religion. And so how they manipulate politics, the science of the happiness of man, if you like, is through the art of religion, the things that you stick to and adhere to. It's an interesting thing. And it's very much true, to be honest with you. This country is a country that's been religiously manipulated. The people in this country have been religiously manipulated for centuries, whether it be by the Catholic Church or the Protestant churches, Which is why you don't find a lot of we've occasionally got a few very famous thinkers from Northern Ireland, if you like, and they're biggies, but they're few. We don't produce intellectual giants in this country at all, which is a real shame. But our education system's dominated by religion. It's the reason why I'm not a teacher, by the way. For me to get a teaching job in Northern Ireland, if I applied to a Catholic school, Catholic teachers get a priority over me, then Protestant teachers, and then I would always be considered third because I'm not a Protestant or a Catholic. I don't have a chance at getting any of the jobs, and that's why every teacher that participates in that system in this country is a sectarian, and all our schools are sectarian for that reason. We've got a few integrated schools now. And one of the big stories here is actually we've got a Protestant minister trying to prevent one of the I think it's the biggest grammar school in the country to becoming integrated, Catholics and Protestants together. So we still have all of that nonsense here, you know. Anyway, enough of that, folks. Carlos is saying, yeah, but they're actively deporting people who look like me. Oh dear, Carlos. Yeah, it's I don't know what to say about it, to be honest with you. In some ways, I don't know. I think if you were getting deported from the United States is not doing well, is it? My understanding is that your national debt for every single American citizen is at the minute is approximately something like £350,000 each. Something like that, isn't it? It's ridiculous. We're not much better off over here, to be honest. You know, but I can get that it's a scary sort of time, Carlos, to be honest with you, you know. What is it they always say? Power is never taken, it's given. You know, Christopher May, but how are they going to collect? Well, put it this way, you deport those 12 million people, then all of your national debt goes up individually massively. You know, work it out, £350,000, 350,000 times 12 million. Add that then to each individual's debt, if you know what I mean. It's bizarre, you know. But it'd be interesting to see if he manages to get to a third term and that kind of thing, you know. He is fascinating, but it's what we would call in this country a good metaphor, but it's like watching a car crash. You know, we would describe people as a car crash. You know, you just have to look and, oh my God. Anyway, here we go. Let's get running. I haven't slept in 2 days, by the way, folks. So my old sleep disorders kicked in quite bad. Probably looked like not quite bad, as bad as I normally. It started to look like a skull after 3 or more days. So anyway, bear with me a wee bit, folks, today. We'll see how we run. So off we go, starting chapter 25. A warning to the Bene Gesserit. It's all about their misguided behaving as so many other misguided scientists have behaved, trying to take something from life. Okay, so our time here is 1 hour before dawn, and our location is at Red Chasm Sietch. If we have our original copy of Dune, there it is, it's right in front of me. If we get our little map out at the front, I actually thought reading at the start of this that they'd gone beyond it, but there we go. So just to give you, where are we? Sietch Tabor is up here. Okay, and where they've actually gone to on the other side of the map is past the 60-degree meridian line, and it's, where'd it go? Oh, there you go. Red Chasm is there on the map. So they're way out in the extremes. And Sietch Tabor is way up here. It's also just past the 60-degree line, which is the big circle going around here. So that's where they've gone to. Oh, well, I'll have to tell you, I'll have to have an hour about these in a bit as well. But let's get on. Okay, here we go. In the hour before dawn, Jessica sat immobile on a worn rug of spice cloth. Around her were the bare rocks of an old and poor Sietch, one of the original settlements. It lay below the rim of Red Chasm, sheltered from the westerlies of the desert. Al-Fali and his brothers had brought her here. Now they awaited word from Stilgar. The Feda king had moved cautiously in the matter of communication, however. Stilgar was not to know their location. The Feda king already knew they were under a process verbal, an official report of crimes against the Imperium. We've discussed that before. Way back somewhere. Alia was taking the tack that her mother had been suborned by the enemies of the realm. although the sisterhood had not yet been named. And the word "yet" is the one there, and I think that's got something to do with our warning in the epigraph. Ali is going to blame the Bene Gesserit for kidnapping her mother, possibly allow her to move against them. The high-handed, tyrannical nature of Ali's power was out in the open, however, and her belief that because she controlled the priesthood, she controlled the Fremen, was about to be tested. I like that. Interesting use of the phrase there, by the way. We've got that nice little bit at the start of that, the high-handed, tyrannical nature. That alliterative little phrase should, I think, remind us of a Gom Jabbar, the high-handed enemy, isn't it? Has Alia become a Gom Jabbar? So Jessica's message to Stilgar had been direct and simple. My daughter is possessed and must be put to trial. Fears destroyed values, though, and it already was known that some Fremen would prefer not to believe this accusation. Their attempts to use the accusation as a passport had brought 2 battles during the night, but the ornithopters al-Fali's people had stolen had brought the fugitives to this precarious safety. Word was going out to the Feda from here, but fewer than 200 of them remained on Arrakis. The others held posts throughout the Empire. I've been asking a couple of wee questions just a few chapters back. Was that we were wondering why was Gadhean al-Fali poor when he was a Feda king, and why would Paul not have rewarded these people? And I thought that we'd said that they should be in positions of power. So we've got a little bit of this confirmed here, is that most of them held posts throughout the Empire. So there's less than 200 Feda on Arrakis at this time. In relation to the poverty of some of these, we're going to get that answered in a wee minute or two. Fears destroyed values, though. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? Your fear will overcome, your morals, your values, your ethics, if you like. And we found out that some, in this wee paragraph here, that some Fremen have tried to use this accusation as a means to an end, if you like. It's a bit vague, but we're told that two battles are fought during the night. We're not told who they're between, but it's suggestive it could be Fremen on Fremen, or it could be Fremen against the priesthood, this Avalia, that kind of thing. It's not quite clear here. I'll come up for air there, folks. Let me see and just catch up with your comments. Sean, yeah, Christopher said, how are they going to collect? Sean was saying, good evening, Doc. Hi, Sean. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us, as always. I think that's what Carlos and Christopher were talking about there. Bojack, Trump, fear. Fear has destroyed values. Don't fear them too much. I think that's the trick. But I don't know. Give them time. And yeah, he's a very interesting chap. Musk, I think, is quite a bit of a doolally myself. Oh dear. Yeah, we'll have a wee natter about it if he's like at the end of the chapter. But yeah, Jessica reflecting upon these facts. Reflecting upon these facts, Jessica wondered if she had come to the place of her death. Some of the Feda believed it, but the death commandos accepted this easily enough. Al-Fali had merely grinned at her when some of his young men voiced their fears. So people who are sworn to die in combat tend to be not too afraid of death, I would say. Pardon me. I've been around a ridiculous amount of death. Death is absolutely nothing to be feared whatsoever. Dying, on the other hand, is a whole other kettle of fish. To be honest with you, that's not funny at all. Not in the slightest. So, yeah, is she one? Is this where I'm going to die? And we get this kind of, we've heard this response before, haven't we? From al-Fali it comes, when God hath ordained a creature to die in a particular place, he causeth that creature's wants to direct him to that place, the old Naib had said. Yeah, well, it's kind of a fate, destiny type thing. If the universe wants you dead and you're going to die in a place, it will make sure you end up there. There's a story like that, isn't there? And it's a bi-location story. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm trying to think if it's one of the Arabian Nights or not. It's about this. I think it's about this slave, and his master sends him to the market, in Basra or something, someplace like that. And when he's in the market, buying the goods for his master, he turns around and sees Death there in the market, and Death turns around and goes, "It's you." What? And he goes, "Oh," and he runs. And he basically runs to back to his master and says, "Master, Death has come for me. Please, will you give me a horse and let me flee for my life?" This kind of, his master goes, "Sure, right, go, Death, go for it." And he gets this horse and he rides all the way to Baghdad or somewhere. Um, and he gets off the horse in the market in Baghdad, and there's Death waiting for him. And Death goes, and he goes up and, "Oh, caught up with you." And the idea is that Death, what was he surprised about? And when Death saw him, the whole point of it was he was surprised to see him in Basra because he was coming for him in Baghdad, this kind of thing. And so it causes the guy to go to his place of death. I'm sorry for paraphrasing it badly. I almost wish I had the story in front of me. It's one of my favorites, actually. I've only read it a couple of times. Made me laugh. So it's one of those trying to escape your fate kind of things. There's Julian saying, "Hi, everybody." Hi, Julian. How you doing? And having a speech saying, "After all, the universe created Arrakis to train the faithful, didn't he?" He did indeed. Often question which God, though. But yes, indeed. Especially when there's occasions whenever the Fremen religion, the religions of the Empire, get a bit confusing because there seems to be a single deity. But if you actually check out the back of the book, you'll find out there's a triple deity as well, which is a male, female, neuter thing. There's a few odd things in this, and of course we're told that the Trilaxia and some other worlds have escaped the worst sort of aspects of the Butlerian jihad. And of course we have the Fremen who don't follow the Empire's religion. So that's probably the Imperial religion I'm thinking on, isn't it? It's a male, female, neuter thing. I wonder what they called it. But yeah, yes, indeed. We get lots of wee quotes like that over here, actually. But I think a lot of countries and nations and peoples have a wee, "Oh, it's God's own country," or this kind of thing. That's what one people would say about this place. But I've heard it said about many countries. Well, one I always like to think is that the devil's an Irishman. I think that's hilarious. And that he plays a fiddle as well. There you go. Not that no such being exists. But so we've got fear of death here. Yet the Fedaykin are fine. Some of the younger ones, not so much. It's them that express their fears. It's the younger men here that are going to cause a problem. And a real sense of fear in Jessica, I think, a real sense of concern. And it's a reminder of Frank's attitudes to violence in young men. And if we remember all the way back to Jamis, badly miscast in Denis Villeneuve's movie because he's a very good actor, the person that plays Jamis in the movie, but he's far too old. Jamis is a teenager in the book, and he's meant to represent violence in young men, uncontrolled violence. And of course, if we remember back, that if Paul doesn't kill Jamis in the book, that's whenever they're done, Stilgar will end him because of his behavior. So it's just a little. Now, this is almost a false nod to this, if you like. There's fears here, but it's the youth, the uncontrolled. That's YouTube messing us around. Evening Doc says, "G, is that G or G? I don't know." Evening Doc, trouble at Mill, turn it off. I did that. I don't know if anybody's back or not, G. Let's see. I hate this when it happens. It's annoying, isn't it? But at least we haven't got too far into it. I don't know. Anyone hear or see me? Not looking like it. Right, folks, I'm going to try and reconnect. Back. Am I back, Julian? We're back. Oh, good. Have them experience. Are we okay, folks? I was just about to shut her down and start it all over. There you go, back already. Why, hey. Sorry about that, folks. Not my fault. YouTube, as always. But every little thing that YouTube ever does to fix it never, ever, ever works. Not once has it ever worked. And I kind of wonder why they bother. To be honest with you, maybe it works for other people, but it doesn't work for me. Right. Could you guys let me know where we got to, folks? Because I figured it out pretty quick there, so I didn't go too far ahead. I tell you what I'll do is it's dialogue. I'll just jump back to, we had a bit of a matter about when God hath ordained, and we had a comment on that, didn't we, from Havamic speech, right? So we got that far. Sorry about that, folks. Hoping it won't happen again. If we do get cut off, I'll do my best to get back on again. Hoping that you're all still there. Okay, so the last time this happened, I was talking to myself for 30 minutes, would you believe? Okay, the patched curtains at her doorway rustled. Al-Fali entered. The old man's narrow, wind-burned face appeared drawn, his eyes feverish. Obviously, he'd not rested. Someone comes, he said. From Stilgar? Perhaps. He lowered his eyes, glanced leftward in the manner of the old Fremen who brought bad news. What is it? Jessica demanded. We have word from Tamar that your grandchildren are not, and it says here in my copy of the book, and I think that's a mistake, it should be there, are not there. He spoke without looking at her. So this talking to and looking to the left is a sort of like I'm embarrassed to bring you bad news kind of thing, you know. Alia, she has ordered that the twins be given over to her custody, but Sietch Tamar reports that the children are not there. That is all we know. And that's as far as I got there, folks. So hopefully we're all still there. There you go. Could someone else just give me a wee quick, are we okay? Because I'm not too sure if we are all back or not. I'd appreciate it. Still, guys, I'll put it this way. I'll make another note, because if we are cut off, if it's that bad, folks, and we're completely shut down, I'll try again tomorrow. Or else at 11 tonight. We'll keep going, but at the minute, I'm not sure if anybody can hear or see me. The joy of that, eh? It's not looking like it, is it? Okay. I can thank you, Julian. That's okay. I'll keep going then. Thank you very much. I hope you are all still there. Goodness gracious. I wonder what the edit on this one's going to be like. I hope I don't end up having to do this whole one again. Right. Anyway, here we go. Let's move on, folks. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Stilgar sent them into the desert, Jessica said. Possibly, but it is known that he was searching for them all through the night. Perhaps it was a trick on his part. That's not Stilgar's way, she said, and thought, unless the twins put him up to it. So it could be that he's pretending to look and actually does know. That's a guess on al-Fali's part. There was one other wee thing. Good here, Doc, says Carlos. Looking. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yeah, unless the twins put him up to it. Right, let's move on then. So, but that didn't feel right either. She wondered at herself. No sensations of panic to suppress, and her fears for the twins were tempered by what Ganima had revealed. She peered up at al-Fali, found him studying her with pity in his eyes, and she said, they've gone into the desert by themselves. Alone? Those two children? Just the whole little panic thing, by the way, gave me an opportunity to get a don't panic and a button in. She's not panicking. But she's fearful. But her fears are tempered by what Ganima had revealed to her. She peered up at al-Fali, found him studying her with pity in his eyes, and she said, they've gone into the desert by themselves. Alone, those two children. She did not bother to explain that those two children probably knew more about desert survival than most living Fremen. Her thoughts were fixed instead on Leto's odd behavior. When he had insisted that she allow herself to be abducted. She put the memory aside, but this moment demanded it. He said she would know the moment to obey him. Again, we have this Adab, the demanding memory. One little thing I wanted to point out, by the way, is in the previous chapter, al-Fali here has an Irish first name, and it's spelled Gadhean. How you pronounce that is it's like Nathan, but with a G, so it's Gathan, if you like. In the previous chapter, now it's just interesting we run with that name, though he is Gathan al-Fali. In this chapter, we don't even bother with his name again. And I'm kind of wondering why. And I was actually thinking about, I'm reading The White Plague at the minute, and I found a comment a wee while back. I think I mentioned that it was the book that Frank Herbert wrote that apparently alienated him. I can't remember who said this from his American audience, and I thought it was because of the use of Irish terms in it, Irish place names and stuff. I mean, they actually stumped British newsreaders quite badly. I was listening to a BBC newsreader the other day trying to read the word Fermanagh, and it was hilarious. But I was actually thinking about when I was reading. I'm about halfway through. Where am I? I'm at 236 and The White Plague at the minute. Not bad. And I was wondering, was it the Irish? Is it not that there's much in it? To be honest with you. But I was wondering simply, did Frank drop the name from this chapter because it was, did he think it was bothersome? It's interesting to refer to a character by their first name in one chapter, really. Because prior to this, he's Gadhean, or Gathan, isn't he? As much as I write down al-Fali, Gathan al-Fali, we don't get that mention of that part of his name in this chapter at all, which I thought was interesting, and I wondered why. And I guess we'll never know. So this is al-Fali. He says, the messenger should be in the sietch by now. Al-Fali said, I will bring him to you. He let himself out through the patched curtain. So that's exit al-Fali. Jessica stared at the curtain. It was red cloth of spice fibre, but the patches were blue. And here we go. And I've actually doodled it. I've done a couple of wee doodles here for this bit there. I don't know if you can see them. We've got the patchwork curtain. We've got the dead dogs, which bother me. Here we have the reason for the Feda King's poverty, if you like. The story. So Jessica stared at the curtain. It was red cloth of spice fibre, but the patches were blue. The story was that this sietch had refused to profit from Muad'Dib's religion, earning the enmity of Alia's priesthood. I've got to look that up, actually. That's something I've been saying wrong my entire life. Yeah, it's enmity, isn't it? It's one of it must be one of those kind of malapropisms, isn't it? That's what they call them. I've said enmity in my entire life, and I was looking at it and went, it's enmity, isn't it? Because it's from enemy. It's just a personal problem there in pronunciation. I thought it was kind of funny, and I'll have to do my best to say it properly. So they had refused to profit from Muad'Dib's religion, earning the enmity of Alia's priesthood. The people had reportedly the people have here. Sorry, I'll read that again. The people here reportedly had put their capital into a scheme to raise dogs as large as ponies. Dogs bred for intelligence as guardians of children. The dogs had all died. Some said it was poison, and the priests were blamed. So my little skull here is all the Red Chasm dogs, poisoned possibly by the priests. And we now have that understanding of, because it didn't quite gel, did it? Why would these people, the most faithful of Muad'Dib's men, if he's the emperor, why would they be poor? It didn't make any sense. And so they put all their money into dogs. Dogs as big as ponies. I used to do a bit of work for a guy a long, long time ago. It's his wife. His wife is a writer. He's a former inspector in the police in the RUC here. He was shot twice in the chest. And I used to do when I was doing my A levels. I did a bit of labour for him, clearing out old outhouses and stuff like that. His wife would go by the pen name of S.J. Michaels. She wrote kind of Tom Clancy-esque, if you like, techno thrillers in Northern Ireland, sort of based on. I can tell you that they're loosely based on true stories. He used to have an Irish wolfhound, and his little girl used to ride it like a pony. Immense dogs, those. And there's a few big dogs, isn't there? But that's whenever I read that, it just reminded me of him and his Wayne on the big Irish wolfhound. You know, there we go. But it's kind of a silly thing, isn't it? They've put all their capital, put all their money, whatever they've had, their wealth, into pooches to breed them as guardians for children. You know. It's interesting that we've had the house ferrets. It reminded me on the Dutch putting all their money into tulips, that kind of thing. And to put as I said, to put all your eggs into one basket, if you like, is a bit daft, isn't it? But we have a reason for it. They don't wish to profit from the religion of Muad'Dib. So there's a nobility to it. It's not great, and they've tried to go another way that's not worked for them. Possibly it's been hampered by the priests. And you get that sense that when you get organizations like that, like priests and stuff, they want everybody on the take. If everyone's on the take, they're fine. If someone's not, there's a problem. Does that make sense? Corrupt people can't abide an honest man in their or woman in their midst, if you see what I mean. So it's answered a couple of little questions. It's an odd thing to think of dogs like this on Arrakis. I don't think they would survive very long myself. In fact, I do actually think some of the problems with Frank's work is some of the stuff that's set up in Dune. I don't know if you recall this, but we went and worked out all the surface temperatures and stuff like that. You know, to be honest with you, I don't think any of the ecology that's brought in here or any of the animals that are transplanted prior to post Muad'Dib becoming emperor, I don't think would survive, even in the shade, because we worked out those temperatures too. And yeah, not the nicest place, Arrakis. Anyway, that's quite a dear oh dear, all these poisoned dogs. It's a bit sad. I like my dogs, as you know. So Jessica here, she shook her head to drive out these reflections, reorganizing them for what they were. Gafla, the gadfly distraction. Where had those children gone? To Jacurutu? They had a plan. Oh, I wonder what it is. They tried to enlighten me. This is Jessica's thoughts. They tried to enlighten me to the extent they thought I'd accept, she remembered. And when they'd reached the limits as they saw them, Leto had commanded her to obey. He commanded her. And we've got a big exclamation mark with that. Doesn't look like she's too happy with it, does she? Leto had reorganized. Sorry, by the way, we've also got the words reflections again, reflections and mirror images and stuff like that in relation to Alia, etc. They try. Oh, sorry, hang on. Now, Leto had recognized what Alia was doing. That much was obvious. Both twins had spoken of their aunt's affliction, even when defending her. Alia was gambling on the righteousness of her position in the regency. Demanding custody of the twins confirmed that Jessica found a harsh laugh shaking her own breast. Sorry, I'll read that again. I missed my full stop there. Alia was gambling on the righteousness of her position in the regency. Demanding custody of the twins confirmed that. Jessica found a harsh laugh shaking her own breast. And the Reverend Mother Gaius Helmohaim had been fond of explaining this particular error to her student Jessica. So this is a memory of Mohaim in the past. And here we go. If you focus your awareness only upon your own righteousness, then you invite the forces of opposition to overwhelm you. This is a common error. Even I, your teacher, have made it. Yeah, righteousness. It's the one line that Sting delivers pretty well in the righteous in Dune, isn't it? In David Lynch's Dune. Aye, righteousness is a funny old thing, isn't it? But at some point, we all have our sense of. I don't know, even just that we're right. I say righteousness maybe takes on a bit more of a connotation than just being correct, if you like. But and it's true. I remember just from personal experience, a thing when kind of looking after my dad, and he was being difficult at the time and stuff like that. Probably so was I. And I had to just for a moment, and I was convinced that I was right in what I was saying to him from my own point of view, and I had to go and speak to my wife a wee bit about it. And I was just, he's like, oh dear, this is getting tricky. Froze up again, Doc. Thank you, Carlos. I got that this time, and I just hit the refresh. I smashed it. Could anybody tell me where I got to before we froze? Because this is quite bad because we're going to be missing stuff on this episode. It's the second time. Right. I don't know. Are we back, folks? Can anybody hear me? I'm so sorry about this. I can only apologize to you on behalf of YouTube. Let me just check that. Rightness and rightness. It's rightness in my book too. I've made a mistake, guys. That's thank you very much for pointing that out. Gambling on the rightness. Yeah, it's funny that I ended up saying rightness. Right, there we go. It's the rightness both times. Thank you very much. And I'll do that. Fix this one down here as well. It's rightness. Thank you. I do that now and then. I actually occasionally accidentally correct Frank's words to something I think they should be, but that's my fault, and I try not to do it. Right, let's see. Stream crashed again whenever I hear the word right. I'll go with that then, that we got up to there. So Leto had recognized what Alia was doing. That much was obvious. Both twins had spoken of their aunt's affliction even when defending her. Alia was gambling on the rightness of her position in the Regency. Thank you so much. Demanding custody of the twins confirmed that. Jessica found a harsh laugh shaking her own breast. And then the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen O'Haim had been fond of explaining this particular error to her student Jessica. If you focus your awareness only upon your rightness, then you invite the forces of opposition to overwhelm you. This is a common error. Even I, your teacher, have made it, and I made a wee common error there too. I think that's probably why I did it. Actually, I was thinking on going the righteous. There's a hard code in the book, yeah. That kind of thing. Oh dear. Right, hopefully we're all okay, folks, and we'll move on. Now we're back to the eye from that memory. This is Jessica, and even I, your student, have made it. Jessica whispered to herself. But yes, your sense of being right. I was kind of trying to tell you a wee anecdote about when I thought I was right, and I was pretty convinced I was, and I wasn't at all. And it took my wife to explain it to me, and it was a total facepalm moment, and I'm not a person that has a lot of self-doubt, but I do make mistakes, and I tend to be quite confident in what I do, but sometimes when emotions are strong and that kind of thing, you can make mistakes, but focus on your awareness only upon how right you are. It tends to narrow your worldview a bit, doesn't it? It's not being particularly sympathetic or empathetic to other people and their ideas as well. And it's tricky to go through life. You can try to be certain of things. Uncertainty always creeps in, but a little bit of self-doubt, I think. It works very well in academia, if you see what I mean. It works well in different things. It's one of the reasons why I write all this stuff out. I don't trust myself to get it correct all the time. I don't trust myself to make a mess of it, so I absolutely go at it tooth and nail, hammer and tongs. So This is Jessica again. She heard fabrics whispering in the passage beyond the curtain. Two young Fremen entered, part of the entourage they'd picked up during the night. The two were obviously awed at being in the presence of Muad'Dib's mother. Jessica had read them completely. They were non-thinkers, attaching themselves to any fancied power for the identity which this gave them. Without a reflection from her, they were empty. And again, reflections there. Thus they were dangerous. Thus they were dangerous, and I've marked that in red. They're non-thinkers. And this is her doing her Bene Gesserit. She's read them completely. They don't think. I think that's nonsense. There's not a person that doesn't really think, but they attach themselves to any fancied power for the identity which this gave them. So it's their sense of self-worth and stuff. It comes from being in the shade of someone greater than them. It comes from attaching yourself to greatness, if you like, or to powerful people, which is a big theme within the Dune series, if you like. It's as much as we often talk about the dangerous hero, etc. The important thing that we should look at is the power structures that develop around such individuals, all the sycophants, that kind of thing, Oh, what's that? There's a great word for it, wasn't it? It's away in my head. I'll try and think of it again. Panegyrist, that's it. Panegyrist, if you like. That's something, people like that, But because of this, without reflection from her, they were empty. Thus, they were dangerous. I'm not quite sure what that means, but is it without an acknowledgement or something like that from her? But the first of these two young men begins to speak to Jessica here. We were sent ahead by al-Fali to prepare you, one of the young Fremen said. Now, the first thing I thought was that if al-Fali had any doubts about these people, he wouldn't have sent them in the first place. But that's just me. Jessica felt an abrupt clenching tightness in her breast, but her voice remained calm. Prepare me for what? Stilgar has sent Duncan Idaho as his messenger. So it could have been to prepare her for the death still, that kind of thing, Lapdogs, thank you, Carlos. I can hear one of mine. Oh, I looked at her. Too late. I looked at her. Holly's outside the door. I got her. She's looking for my attention, aren't you, big love? You okay, pet? You all right, love? Oh, you want in? Bear with me a second, folks. I might have to. Hang on. Are you okay, pet? What's up, me? Huh? You start, love? Oh, go on. Off you go. Go see here. Go see your rabbit. I know she does, but come on. Oh, come on. In you go. Go sit up there if you want. Okay. Now, behave. I've been joined by Holly Holiday Sloan, who's probably looking for lots of belly rubs at the minute, but you'll have to be patient and sit there. But no. Oh, hello. Here we go. Just to show you. Here we go. There she is. She's coming. Our Hollylicious. Come on, love. Up and sit down. Here. That's it. Good girl. Oh, well, we'll see how we go, folks. Apologies. Talking about lapdog. Stilgar has, so there's a bit of fear here, but it's, prepare you. So it's not quite for what, prepare me for what. Stilgar has sent Duncan Idaho as his messenger. Shh, you want to sit down? Sit down. Yeah, there we go. There. That's okay. See if I can pet her here while reading. For the classic girl. So Jessica pulled her Abba hood up over her hair as an unconscious gesture. Now, I've written next, that's defensive and it's secretive. And her thoughts here, Duncan? But he was Alia's tool. The first of the young Fremen, the Fremen who'd spoken to, I'll do that again. The Fremen who'd spoken took half a step forward. Idaho says he has come to take you to safety, but al-Fali does not see how this can be. So we have a sort of a beginning of a breaking down of trust here. I suppose we have factions really that have set up within this book. It seems strange indeed, Jessica said, but there are stranger things in our universe. Bring him. They glanced at each other, but obeyed, leaving together with such a rush that they tore another rent in the worn curtain. You know, the rapidity of youth, if you like. Oh, where you go? You want out again? Come on here. Out you go, Rob. Come on. Sorry, folks. Give me a wee second. Go see Doodles. Go play with Doodles. That's a girl. I was just saying, we never used to mind having the dogs in here, but it's the floor that makes them so noisy. I'll see if I can get a carpet or something, a wee rug, to stop them tipper tapping all there, you know. Pretty. Carlos said pretty. I've got a red chow, not the smartest dog, but I love him anyway. Holly is, well, we found her on holiday. That's why she's called Holly Holiday. She's a German Shepherd, Scottish Collie cross, I think. That's our best guess at it, but it's the colouring underneath her is gorgeous. But she's a German Shepherd on top and a Scottish Collie on the bottom. But she's a big long legs and she's a lovely girl. So good natured. Oh, I gotta love dogs. Now, right, folks. I know we're having a bit of a night with the YouTube. Hopefully, things will move on a bit more smoothly. Let's see. So yeah, there's stranger things have happened, haven't there? At Brigham. So off they go. Presently, Idaho stepped through the curtain, followed by the two Fremen and al-Fali, bringing up the rear, hand on his crysknife. Idaho appeared composed. He wore the dress casuals of an Atreides house guard, a uniform which had changed little in more than 14 centuries. Arrakis had replaced the old gold-handled plasteel blade with a crysknife, but that was minor. It's interesting to think that a uniform won't change much over 1,400 years, and that speaks a lot to the tradition, you know, and the stagnation, if you like, of the empire of the Dune universe, if you like. So, I'm told you wish to help me, Jessica said. As odd as that may seem, he said. But didn't Alia send you to abduct me? She asked. Direct and to the point, isn't it? No mucking around there. A slight raising of his black eyebrows. You know what? I can do that one eyebrow thing. Oh, I used to. Oh, stop doing that. It's probably weird. My eyebrows are pretty much almost blonde white, so you can't see them that well. Sorry, I'm being silly. A slight raising of his black eyebrows was the only mark of surprise. The many-faceted Thylaxu eyes continued to stare at her with glittering intensity. Those were her orders, he said. Al-Fali's knuckles went white on his crysknife, but he did not draw. I've spent much of this night reviewing the mistakes I made with my daughter, she said. Again, there's honesty there. Well, what we get some brutal honesty here, isn't there? There were many, Idaho agreed. And I shared most of them. So also honesty from him. She saw now that his jaw muscles were trembling. He's not a happy bunny, is he? It was easy to listen to the arguments which led us astray, Jessica said. I wanted to leave this place. You wanted a girl you saw as a younger version of me. And I wrote, ouch, burn. Oh dear. And his response is that he accepted this silently. And I've written next to that, therefore it's true. So what we're being told here is that Idaho has married Alia because she reminds him of Jessica. And I don't know which is worse. Is it the admission that, yes, that they both know this? The question becomes, does Alia know it? And it would certainly make for a very, very awkward dynamic between these two, wouldn't it? That's a very good point, Carlos. Some might see the stagnation as stability, exactly, the conservative nature, if you like, maintain what you have and keep it. Yeah, stability. It's a very good point, actually. Well done. But yeah, I think a lack of change is often stagnating, you know. I don't know. I've lived in a country that didn't change much for a long, long time. You know, probably even post World War II, for a wee bit. But I'd say with the 70s onwards, really, I suppose the trouble's kicking off there. But there's other things that came into Ireland as well, if you like. For example, with the home computer generation, Ireland, because we live in an island, we had more computers per head than anybody else in the British Isles. And if you see, we adapted to new technology and things like that pretty fast. In some ways, we're extraordinarily backward, and in some ways, we have real stagnation. But as you might call, as I said, Carlos points out, some would see it as stability. But I don't know, the rate of change in the world these days, sometimes you might think it might be good just to be a statue, to stand still when all else moves around you, I get the real sense that, I don't know if anybody's ever read Justin Toffler's Future Shock, or there's a couple of good documentaries on YouTube about it. There's one with Orson Welles. Future Shock is here, that's quite good. But it has been here for a long time, and I think especially when you look at the madness of things that you see on Twitter and YouTube and stuff these days, I think Future Shock's a very real thing, and I think possibly it's getting worse. But yes, indeed. United Kingdom has a particular kind of stagnation with its royal family and its peer system and all these hereditary titles going back and so on and so forth. And within that, you have, particularly within a certain class of England, massive inbreeding. And you have had it for quite some time. We've had a fair bit of that over here as well. But stagnation could be seen as stability. A very, very good point, Carlos. Yeah, it's a bit of you married my daughter because she's a younger version of me, and his silence says it all. That's a bit harsh, and it's also that they're being completely honest with each other. Honesty and trust, I think, within this chapter. Already we can see that Jessica doesn't really trust the two young Fremen, though I think she trusts al-Fali here. The honesty between her and Duncan, there's still not a complete set of trust here, I think. But the admission honesty is maybe a step forward for the two characters. Off she goes then. Where are my grandchildren? She demanded, voice going harsh. And then get a sudden shift in tone here. He blinked then. Stilgar believes they have gone into the desert, hiding. Perhaps they saw this crisis coming. Jessica glanced at al-Fali, who nodded his recognition that she had anticipated this. And that's the fact that she mentioned to him that the children went into the desert by themselves. What is Alia doing? She risks civil war, he said. Do you believe it'll come to that? Probably not. These are softer times. There are more people willing to listen to pleasant arguments. I agree, she said. Well and good. What of my grandchildren? It's not dropping the thing at all here. Stilgar will find them if, yes, I see. It was really up to Gurney Halleck then. She turned to look at the rock wall on her left. Alia grasps the power firmly now. She looked back at Idaho. You understand? One uses power by grasping it lightly. To grasp too strongly is to be taken over by, and thus to become its victim. Kind of power corrupts absolutely, that kind of thing. Better to rule, what is it they say? Better to rule with an iron fist in a velvet glove. This kind of thing. But yeah, power, grasping it. One uses power by grasping it lightly. Don't grip onto it too much. Don't hold on to it too much. It's ephemeral and it will leave you, And especially if you do use power on other people. And it takes me back, by the way, just if we go back to the chapter 24 epigraph, which was in relation to that quote by Louis Vilo, which was not, in fact, by him at all. It was Thomas Babington Macaulay, wasn't it? Goodness, I didn't realize this, but as much as I'd written down he was a poet, a historian and stuff, I know his work. And I was chatting to one of my students, was asking me about, and he got the myth mixed up. He was asking me about these three guys that defended a bridge. And he was laughing. I said, that's Horatio, Horatius Cochlus, isn't it, at the bridge? And I went, so the poem is Horatio at the bridge, and I didn't realize this is by Thomas B. Macaulay. But I had to do that. Would you believe this? I did that poem in primary school. Primary school. And it's still one of my all-time favorites, you know. Power doesn't corrupt, merely attracts the corruptible. Frank Herbert, that's correct. Have a mixed speech. Well done, thank you. Oh, I've missed a couple. Hang on, let's see. Oh no, just the one there. Carlos saying the more extreme the changes, the more violently the previous generation fights them. I have a wee bit of I have some ideas about that, but just generational shifts within any given society. I would argue that we often have probably about 5 to 6 different generations running at any given time. And that the powerful generation, the generation that tends to rule, tends to be in their 60s and 70s and 80s even, but 60s to 70s is generally where the main bulk of our politicians are. 50s are. So if you think that, you know, your teenagers are out of that, your people in your 30s, your people in your 40s, your people in your 50s, and separations between these. And that, you know, I think America's had, was it Joe Biden, you know, he's been a lot, you know, when he was, I know all the jokes about his age and so on, you know. But you really do get a distinct shift in attitudes. There are kids here in Northern Ireland now. I've heard this term, and I think it's kind of funny. But they come from mixed families. I'm from a mixed family myself, but they call themselves Catholic prods or Protelics, and I think that's fantastic. You know, and it's they're trying to carve a new identity out of religious sectarianism and religious segregation. The words are interesting enough, but I was told by a young man that he thinks he's a Catholic prod because he is a Catholic parent and a Protestant father. I just thought that was brilliant. You know, it made me laugh, you know. I'd kind of created a character almost that I was going to do some stuff with. Never got round to it as usual, but the character was called Catholic Prodnut. And it was just to be a sort of the worst of all things Northern Irish. But yes, indeed. The more extreme the changes, the more violently the previous generation fights them. And it's especially when you get one generation, particularly with governments coming in, you'll get one government over 4 to 5 years and set up a whole bunch of stuff, and then the next guy comes in and undoes it all. And almost, you know, politics in some ways, many ways these days is you take two steps forward, 1 step back, you know. And it's a slow, it's more like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, I think sometimes. But yeah, the term that I use for this country is retarded atavism in the non-pejorative sense, of course. And it's a very good, it's a perfect descriptor for the, you know, people in this country. And quite a few other countries too, to be honest with you, particularly where things like traditions, especially wound into religion, you know, pervade into society and do enormous damage, you know. But it's the tradition, we can't give it up. You know, I remember chatting this, I'll be like, oh no, I'll not go into that actually. That's probably a bit rude to say about that, but I'll leave it alone. But yes, indeed, but power attracts the corruptible. But it wasn't totally correct there. Have a mixed speech. Power does attract the corruptible, but it also corrupts. You know, but it doesn't corrupt everybody. It depends on how you want to use your power, I suppose. You can use it for good, or you can use it for bad, or you can use it for your own personal gain. And I think that's where most people go, is it's their own, you know, what can I get out of this? While pretending to represent. You know, I don't know. Our MP represents about 72,000 people. There's no way you can at all, you know. Not even sure who our MP is anymore. I've moved house since. Dear, oh dear. Right. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. So, yes, I say it was really up to Gurney Halleck then. She turned to look at the rock wall on her left. Alia grasps the power firmly now. You understand? One uses power by grasping it lightly. To grasp too strongly is to be taken over by and thus to become its victim. Pardon me. And of course, Alia has been taken over and become a victim, but not just by the power that she's now wielding, but also by the Baron Harkonnen himself in her other memory. And Idaho says here, As my Duke always told me, Idaho said. The suggestion is that Jessica's repeating Duke Leto the First's words. Somehow Jessica knew he meant the older Leto and not Paul, she asked. That's fair enough, I suppose. When it's just said my Duke, I kind of went there. Where am I to be taken in this abduction? Idaho peered down at her as though trying to see into the shadows created by the hood. Al-Fali stepped forward. My lady, you're not seriously thinking, is it not my right to decide my own fate? Jessica asked. But this, Al-Fali's head nodded towards Idaho. This was my loyal guardian before Alia was born, Jessica said. Before he died, saving my son's life and mine. We Atreides always honour certain obligations. I've written down here the fact that the man's dead doesn't bother anyone here. And as much as that person has the memory, the Duncan Idaho is a Gola. It's a wee bit quite hard to sometimes to figure out exactly what he is. Is he this? I don't think he's the same original body. Then you will go with me, Idaho asked. Where would you take her? Al-Fali asked. Best that you don't know, Jessica said. Al-Fali scowled but remained silent. His face betrayed indecision, an understanding of the wisdom in her words, but an unresolved doubt of Idaho's trustworthiness. What of the Feda King who helped me? Jessica asked. They have Stilgar's countenance if they can get to Tabar, Idaho said. I meant to just point out there's that unresolved doubt of Idaho's trustworthiness. It's Al-Fali doesn't necessarily trust him. I think Jessica trusts him too much, maybe here. But she's going to follow Leto's advice, Leto II's advice. So if these Feda King can get to Sietch Tabar, they'll have Stilgar's countenance, they'll be protected there. So Jessica faced Al-Fali. I command you to go there, my friend. Stilgar can use Feda King in the search for my grandchildren. Her focus here really is on the grandchildren, isn't it? The old Naib lowered his gaze as Muad'Dib's mother commands. And Jessica's thoughts are, he's still obeying Paul, she thought. The interesting thing is, as much as that Jessica realized that Idaho is referring to the first Duke Leto, surely Paul would be his Duke at this point. And does he assume that is Paul dead? This kind of thing. Who are Idaho's allegiances to? There's a level of doubt here. And that's helping to build the tension. It's the same way with those two young, initially when those two young Fremen came in, tension, hood up, there's a level of they're dangerous. Something going to happen? Maybe not in this case. We Atreides always honour certain obligations. I have to say, I was just talking about where I corrected that word accidentally there, but one of the things, as much as I watch the spellings in this, I do tend to correct Frank's American spellings with British in my notes. So I write honour with a U. I add the U, and occasionally I do things like that. Right, where were we? He's still obeying Paul, she thought. Right. This is Idaho now. We should be out of here quickly, Idaho said. The search is certain to include this place, and that early. Jessica rocked forward and arose with that fluid grace which never quite left the Bene Gesserit, even when they felt the pangs of age. And she felt old now, after her night of flight. Even as she moved, her mind remained on that peculiar interview with her grandson. What was he really doing? She shook her head, covered the motion by adjusting her hood, and it was too easy to fall into the trap of understanding Leto. Life with ordinary children conditioned one to a false view of the inheritance which the twins enjoyed. That's not just their inheritance physically, if you like, materially, but I think that's a particular reference to their genetic inheritance. I'll just grab some fluids, folks. That's a good point, yeah. Julian. Julian said, Duncan always has an unusual crush on Jessica. He often chooses women who remind him of her, even in future iterations of Duncan. Yeah. It was something I pointed out once upon a time to Cara Kennedy, is that Frank Herbert has a type, and most of his female, I think you'll find the descriptions of his female protagonists, or the main female characters, and at the very least, his first three books are almost identical. And it is what you would call the Irish Colleen, if you like. That pale sort of red hair kind of thing. Maureen O'Hara type, if you want. She would have been probably the archetypal kind of Irish-looking, if you like, actress from Once Upon a Time, from The Quiet Man. But it seems that yeah, it is. He has had a crush on her for a long time. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Oh, delicious. You all right, love? Excuse me a second, folks. What do you need, big love? Do you need out? Are you coming in? Are you coming in? Well, you have to go and behave. Go on, sit down. That's a good. Go. Up you go. Up. I'll see you soon. I promise. Okay? Sorry about that, folks. That's why we're the doghouse. Right, there we are. Sorry about that. Now, her attention was caught by Idaho's pose. He stood in the relaxed preparedness for violence, 1 foot ahead of the other, a stance which she herself had taught him. She shot a quick look at the two young Fremen at al-Fali. Doubts still assailed the old Fremen naib, and the two young men felt this. So she's getting a vibe from these two, I think. Probably more from al-Fali. It's whatever al-Fali does, they will follow, is the sense that I get. And if al-Fali attacked Idaho, the two young Fremen would draw their knives as well. That's just my own opinion. Doubts still assailed the old Fremen naib, and the two young men felt this. I trust this man with my life, she said, addressing herself to al-Fali. And it's not the first time. And it is not the first time. My lady, al-Fali protested. It's just, he glared at Idaho. He's the husband of the quarantine. Where are you at? Sorry. Can you not just settle for me now? Go on, sit up there. Go on. Yeah? Or you can sit. Come here. Sit down. Sit. You want to be pet? Sorry, folks. She loves attention, this one, doesn't she? Well, where were we? Yeah, and there's the quarantine. And he was trained by my duke and by me, she said. This is not enough for al-Fali, I think. But he's a Gola. The words were torn from al-Fali. My son's Gola, she reminded him. Might be kind of the Walking Dead kind of thing, but he belongs to my son, your duke, your master, your emperor, Muad'Dib. Not that he's about, I suppose, at the moment. It was too much for a former Feda king who'd once pledged himself to support Muad'Dib to the death. He sighed, stepped aside, and motioned the two young men to open the curtains. Jessica stepped through, Idaho behind her. She turned and spoke to al-Fali in the doorway. Jessica, this is her, sorry, you're to go to Stilgar. He's to be trusted. Yes. But she still heard doubts in the old man's voice. Idaho touched her arm. We should go at once. Is there anything you wish to take? Only my common sense, she said. Why? Do you fear you're making a mistake? She glanced up at him. You were always the best Thopter pilot in our service, Duncan. This did not amuse him. He stepped ahead of her, moving swiftly, retracing the way he'd come. Sorry, that's 55. Check, that's my A, looks like an O. He'd come, that's it. Yeah, just fix that. Sorry, bear with me. There we are. The way he comes. Yeah, sorry, that's my bad handwriting again. Al-Fali fell into step beside Jessica. How did you know he came by Thopter? He wears no stillsuit, Jessica said. And al-Fali appeared abashed by this obvious perception. He would not be silenced, though. Our messenger brought him here directly from Stilgar's. They could have been seen. Were you seen, Duncan? Jessica asked Idaho's back. You know better than that, he said. We flew lower than the dune tops. I kind of just thought in that sense, how would you honestly know if anybody'd seen you? Just because you're flying below radar is what I get the sense he's doing there, that you still can't be seen, this kind of thing by someone's eyeballs. But it's I suppose the confidence in his skills and abilities, I think, here that she's trying to demonstrate to al-Fali and the two young Fremen. A lot of this is about trust, honoring certain obligations, perhaps, but where the trust is the trust misplaced, I suppose. But yeah, kind of an obvious one. He wears no stillsuit. So they turned into a side passage which led downward in spiral steps, debouching finally into an open chamber well lighted by glow globes high in the brown rock. A single ornithopter sat facing the far wall, crouched there like an insect waiting to spring. The wall would be false rock, a door opening into the desert. As poor as this sietch was, it still maintained the instruments of secrecy and mobility. Idaho opened the ornithopter's door for her, helped her into the right-hand seat. As she moved past him, she saw perspiration on his forehead, where a lock of the black goat hair lay tumbled. Unbidden, Jessica found herself recalling that head spouting blood in a noisy cavern. The steely marbles of the Twi'leksu eyes brought her out of that recollection. Nothing was as it seemed anymore. She busied herself fastening the seatbelt. It's been a long time since you've flown me, Duncan, she said. Long and far time, he said. He was already checking the controls. Sorry, folks. Do you want to love? Go. Off you go. Go see Noodles. Go play with Noodles. That's it. There we go. Sorry. She was sitting down, behaving, getting petted there, and then she decided she was bored. Let's just catch up with your comments a second, folks. Where did I stop? Longing for a long time. There we go. al-Fali and the two younger Fremens waited beside the controls to the false rock, prepared to open it. Right. Let's see. So Julian said, Jessica and Duncan share the je ne sais quoi. For Jessica, those undefined qualities changed the Bene Gesserit forever. For Duncan, it's why he's brought back again. And again, yeah, that certain uncertain, what is it? I think a je ne sais quoi is a much better way of putting it. Carlos is saying, I read that Jessica was based on his wife, Beverly. There's a lot of Beverly in these books, I think. But yes, indeed. A lot of how the female characters act and behave and speak is down to her. So absolutely, Beverly Herbert's hand in these books, particularly with the female characters, is really there, Yeah. No. And again, we've dedications to Bev and so on. But if you have a wee look into that Brian Herbert's biography of his dad, she's a big part of the Dune series. She's the power behind Frank Herbert's throne, I think. And it's often that we get the likes of Cara Kennedy looking at female agency within the Dune series and stuff, the feminist aspects of this work. I never thought that Frank was that enlightened, that a lot of them come from his wife. And it did. And she really is a major influence on the Dune series, but especially the female characters, especially the Bene Gesserit, I think. I don't know. It's interesting. Get a little sense. Sometimes I get senses of biographical things within these stories, but it would be very hard to say that if that was the case or not. It's me speculating. Let me see now. Julian, I don't doubt that there's a lot of Beverly and Jessica. Dario O'Dran speaks directly with Bev's voice later. Thank you, Julian. Yeah. I said it really is, I think, right across the female characters. I think all the female characters have a sense of, at some point, I think Frank ran things by his wife. Would they behave this way? Would they say this? What would they do? You know, etc., etc. Mm, yeah. There's a lot of Bev in these books. One thing always surprised me about Frank Herbert, I don't know where my dad's been dead a couple of years now. I've been grieving, it'll be coming up to 3 years now. Grieving for probably about 2 years. I'm just kind of finished with that process. I think as much as I hide it pretty well, I've had a pretty rough time with it, to be honest with you. But the thing that always surprised me about Frank Herbert was the rapidity with which he remarried after her death. It was very fast, wasn't it? I think it was to his literary agent or something like that. And then I suppose within a very short time, Frank was dead himself. Let me just check here. Beverly. So Beverly Ann Stewart is Beverly Herbert. Just quickly see if it has anything about her here. Sorry, I have this information somewhere, but just not handy. Pardon me. 74, wife Beverly underwent treatment for lung cancer, lived 10 more years. So she died in 84. Then I think Herbert must have remarried in 85, and then he himself died in 86. She died on February the 7th, 1984. Herbert completed and published Heretics of Dune that year, and is afterwards in 85's Chapter House Dune. Herbert included a dedication. A tumultuous year in Herbert's life. Same year his wife's death. His career took off with the release of David Lynch's Dune. Blah, blah, blah. Let me see. 85. In 85, after Beverly's death, he married his former Putnam representative, Teresa Shackelford. Same year, he published Chapter House Dune, which tied up many of the saga's story threads. Herbert's final single work, the collection I, was also published that year, and The Man of Two Worlds was published in 86. He died of massive pulmonary embolism while recovering from surgery for pancreatic cancer on February the 11th, 1986, in Madison, Wisconsin, age 65. There we go. So Beverly was dead about a year before he remarried. I just thought that was a very, very short time. Some people are like that, though, and it's not maybe that he didn't love her or anything like that, or just maybe just didn't want to be on his own, or he fell in love again. But I don't know. So it's a funny thing, that kind of thing. My dad, when my mum passed away, he wouldn't have remarried or had any interest in anybody, Prodlick is very funny. I like Catholic. Catholic Prod is a good one. Catholic a Prod Knot was my wee character I had created that would be a hybrid of them. Yeah. I've got all sorts of ideas about this country, Julian. I tend to keep them to myself, as you probably figured out from chatting to me, Now, where were we, folks? Do you think I harbour doubts about you? Jessica asked, speaking softly to Idaho. Idaho kept his attention on an engine instrument, ignited the impellers, and watched a needle move. A smile touched his mouth, a quick and harsh gesture in his sharp features, gone as quickly as it had come. I am still Atreides, Jessica said. Alia is not. Have no fears, he grated. I still serve the Atreides. Alia is no longer Atreides, Jessica repeated. You needn't remind me, he snarled. Now shut up and let me fly this thing. He's not happy about it, is he? He's well aware of what's happened to Alia, I think, and he really, for her to remind him of this. I'm Atreides. Your wife is not. It's a bit of a smack in the teeth, isn't it? It's not. He doesn't need to be reminded of it, and it obviously makes him angry. Uh, hmm, and just shut up. The desperation. That's the sad. This is the sad thing. I think it comes across as anger, as I said that he snarled, but the desperation in his voice was quite unexpected, out of keeping with the Idaho she'd known, putting down a renewed sense of. Oh, hang on, I've missed a word here. Bear with me. That's what happens when you don't sleep for days. Let's see. Putting down a renewed sense of fear. I've left out the word fear. Put that in there. Fear. Fear is the mind killer. Putting down a renewed sense of fear, Jessica asked, "Where are we going, Duncan? You can tell me now." But he nodded to al-Fali, and the false rock opened outward and up, its wings throbbing with the effort, the jets roaring, and they mounted into an empty sky. Idaho set a southwesterly course towards Sahaya Ridge, which could be seen as a dark line upon the sand. Presently he said, "Do not think harshly of me, my lady. I haven't thought harshly of you since that night you came into your Arrakis great hall, roaring drunk on spice beer," she said. But his words renewed her doubts, and she fell into the relaxed preparedness of complete prana bindu defense. In my copy of the book, I've got another wee mistake here. Not one of mine. Let me just see. Number 66. Where are we? Spice beer. "I haven't thought harshly of you since that night you came into your Arrakis great hall, roaring drunk on spice beer." I've got commas, she said. I've got no quotation marks in my copy of the book. Tisk, tisk. God, we're pedantic, aren't we? But his words renewed her doubts. So this memory of him being, blitzed back in Arrakis, bottom line, don't trust the drunk, I suppose. Would be where but the fact of that's the thing that she remembers. That suddenly renews her doubts of this man. The trust is not there, and she's prepared defensively for an attack. But he's telling her not to think badly of her. Why? But she said, "I haven't thought badly of you since that night." It's been a while. "I remember that night well," he said. "I was very young and inexperienced, but the best swordsmaster in my duke's retinue." She's continuing to try to butter him up here, really, isn't she? "It's been a long time since you've flown me, Duncan. Do you still think I harbour doubts about you? You're the best pilot," this kind of thing. It's trying to get it on side, I think, trying to figure him out. "But the best swordsmaster in my duke's retinue. Not quite, my lady. Gurney could beat me 6 times out of 10. He glanced at her. "Where is Gurney?" "Doing my bidding." He shook his head. So it's taken him a while to ask where Gurney is. I thought it was interesting. Where is he? He's doing my bidding, doing what I want. And that's an indication of, I'm not telling you. No trust at all. Never you mind. He's doing what I want. That's it. That's all he gets. And he shook his head. "Do you know where you're going?" she asked. "Yes, my lady." "Then tell me." "Very well." I just wanted to point out that he doesn't tell her at the point where they're still in the cave. And when she asks, "Where are we going, Duncan? You can tell me now." Al-Fali and his 2 Fremen are still within sight, possibly could lip read, this kind of thing. So he doesn't tell her until they're up in the air. And he's fine to do so now. "Very well. I promised that I would create a believable plot against House Atreides. Only one way, really, to do that." He pressed a button on the control wheel, and cocoon restraints whipped from Jessica's seat, enfolded her in an unbreakable softness, leaving only her head exposed. "I'm taking you to Salusa Secundus," he said, "to Farad'n." In a rare, uncontrolled spasm, Jessica surged against the restraints, felt them tighten, easing only when she relaxed, but not before she felt the deadly Shiga wire concealed in the protective sheathing. "The Shiga wire release has been disconnected," he said, not looking at her. "Oh yes, and don't try voice on me. I've come a long way since the days when you could move me that way." He looked at her. "The Tleilaxu armored me against such wiles. You're obeying Alia, Jessica said. And he cuts her off here. Not Alia, not Alia, he said. We do the preacher's bidding. He wants you to teach Farad'n as once you taught Paul. Jessica remained in frozen silence, remembering Leto's words that she would find an interesting student. Presently, she said, "This preacher, is he my son?" Idaho's voice seemed to come from a great distance. "I wish I knew." So they're both unsure at this point. She's right not to trust him. He has kidnapped her. The best way to make them think of a believable plot against House Atreides is actually to create one, to actually kidnap her and take her to Silius Secundus. And she is remembering at this point Leto's words to let herself be kidnapped when it happens. So what we have is some form of prescience in that fact from Leto, warning us what's been going on. We've had it looks like it's simply a breakdown in trust between within this chapter different Fremen fractions, as well as the Fremen here, Jessica and Idaho. And it builds tension. Oh no, we thought Duncan Idaho was coming to, he's turned against Ali, he's going to rescue her. We weren't quite expecting this. He's going to take her off planet to the enemy, to Farad'n, who's just based, and we're of course in the middle of that point where the twins are being attacked by the Laz Tigers. So the next two chapters that we're going to, that's the end of our chapter, by the way, folks. The next two chapters that we're going to run together, we're going to get, we're going to pop first of all the Silius Secundus, and then we're going to see the culmination of the Laz Tiger attack on Leto and Ganima. So we're pushing the action forward. That's why there's not too much to chat about in these chapters, really, in terms of names and things like that. Doing all the sort of, the Frank work, if you like. But yes, indeed. I was having a wee nosy today just about. I've been meaning to do this, haven't I? I really need to get my head on my shoulders. But I was having a look, just quickly flicking through Frank Herbert. This isn't the book I was looking at, actually. It was the Timothy O'Reilly one. I can't figure out what I've done. But I was having a wee nosy at just some stuff in it. And all enough, there's just in relation to Children of Dune. Just to let you know, by the way, I'm about to do the commentaries very soon on these. I've never been, just to say, this is the worst film I've ever seen in a cinema. Completely different opinion of it on a different screen, but this was the worst crap I've ever seen on a cinema screen in my life. But I saw a normal cinema, and whole parts of it were cut off. It was blurry. It was appalling. And as much as what everybody says on this, the IMAX experience very, very different. But I really thought Denis Villeneuve should experience his film in a normal cinema to see what an absolute fucking mess he made of it. The second film's a bit different. It's not as bad. The other thing is, this is a woke COVID film. And this is not, well, it's maybe still woke, but this is COVID. This is not a COVID film. And you can tell there's certain things that happen in COVID movies, if you like, particularly people in distance that they keep and stuff like that, But I'm going to do a couple of commentaries on it. So I went ahead and bought the 2 DVDs because I've only had downloadable versions of them. And I wasn't sure if I actually had the complete movies. So what I'm going to do very soon, folks, is I'm going to do 2 runs through each film with audio, and I'm going to put it up on the station, so if anybody wants that, they can then stick the film on and run it with the commentary from me, just to give you a bit of insight into what a mess I think that Denis Villeneuve made of Frank Herbert's book. It's got nothing. I think it's a very it's a very pretty looking film. But I think a lot of the substance is gone, and it's in terms of all of the adaptations of Dune, it is by far the worst in relation to the author's intent. And what's starting to bug me is just the sheer amount of lies that the people behind the film have been telling the public. Pretending they've read the book, pretending they understand it. Making shit up about Frank Herbert, making shit up about how the book was received in 1965. absolute bollocks, the whole lot of it. And I'm sorry to say it like that, but it's quite contemptible to have people profess to have some kind of expertise in these books, a love for them, and to absolutely mutilate everything about them and turn it into, simply put, Denis Villeneuve's version of Star Wars. And the one thing that always bothered me about that is that Dune is an anti-war book, and to turn it into a glorified science fiction, I want to make a kind of Star Wars, intelligent Star Wars. It's not that kind of book, and it never was, .com FTW 100%. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'm guessing, But what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm not going to sit and slag off the movies. By the way, if anybody thinks that that's my intent, it's not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 watches. I'm going to record myself twice, and hopefully between I don't want to leave any dead air at all, so I want a full commentary over the films. I'm going to do each one twice. I find the first one quite tedious, actually. Kind of enjoyed certain aspects of the second one, and there are things in this movie that are absolutely appalling as a filmmaker, real bad mistakes. And to slap a 12 certificate on a very stabby film. And not only that, whenever Paul Atreides stabs the Baron, which he doesn't do in the book at all, you can see there's no blood, and you can see the rubber. There's just so many sloppy things in that film. I think it's just got on my nerves eventually after this time. But to see Denis Villeneuve talking about, I'm going to absolutely stick to the book, and when he's already messed it up. This is Dune Messiah I'm talking about. And very interestingly enough, we heard it from him before that Denis Villeneuve is a director who hates dialogue, and I have to say that if he hates it, then it's probably his greatest weakness. And he thinks it doesn't belong in cinema, and that's his singular, solitary opinion. Dialogue is a fundamental part of any kind of drama. And as much as there are silent things, even if you go back to the first days of cinema, they're not lacking in dialogue. It's just that there's not that kind of sound. The dialogue's on the screen. It's written for you, What was I having a look at there? Murnau's Dr. Faust. Murnau's Faust is on. There's some great old silent movies on YouTube, But because I've been wanting to do a whole lot of this stuff, folks, my computer's we've got a computer down. We've had to change microphones. We've got new keyboards. It's just been one of those things. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do it for every version of Dune. So we're going to create commentaries from my point of view, which has got a lot of academic work behind it. I'm going to take notes, make sure I do it right, and we're going to hit everything that's right and everything that's wrong. We're going to run through both of these films. We're going to do the same thing for David Lynch's Dune. In fact, I would like to do it first, actually. And we're also going to do the same thing for the 2 TV miniseries, and we're also going to do the same thing for what's it called? The Redux version of Dune that's on YouTube, the one with all the extra footage put together and cut from David Lynch's version. So we're hopefully going to have 2 different commentaries created for the David Lynch Dune movies. We're not going to do one, by the way, for the Alan Smithy cut. We're going to do then we're going to do the TV miniseries, and then we're going to do these 2 films. But I'm probably going to start with these. But that's why I picked them up. And I was actually appalled at how shit, excuse me, and flimsy. Look at this. This probably cost 10 pence to make. No extra, not hardly any extra features at all. And an awful lot of gushing on the back as usual. Everyone thinks this, the next Star Wars is here. You must see Dune, then watch it again and again. The sci-fi epic of a generation. I know that it really is a hell of a dumbed down version of Dune. And there are a lot of things I like about it. So it's not going to be a hatchet job. It's not going to be any kind of character assassination. I'm going to do my best to present commentaries, personal commentaries, but I'm going to try and do them without any kind of bias. I will have to kind of take notes to make sure I get all the right sort of people mentioned, who the actors are, if I'm going to say that the cinematography is great, I kind of need to know who the cinematographer is. So I'm going to make a wee set of notes, just bullet points and stuff to keep me right. And I'm going to sit down, set up a TV. I'm going to record my own thoughts on headphones, and we'll see how it goes. But that's why I've actually got these on digital download, and I didn't really want to buy them, but I went ahead and got them this week just to do this. So we're hoping. Life's just been a bit funny here. I'm always trying to get stuff done for the channel, but I'm actually trying to organize things that we're going to start doing a lot more. I've got a better way of managing the book club at the minute, and I actually got this chapter because I haven't slept in 2 days with Julie, but I actually got this done a couple of days ago, which meant we're definitely going on time. So it's just turned in terms of ways of finding ways to work and stuff. But it's about time we did this stuff, and especially when who makes this stuff anyway? Is it Warner Brothers or what? I don't know. I didn't even see their logo anywhere. Warner Brothers way down in the top. Yeah, it's just the amount of crap I think that's coming out from the people who made this film, not just the director, the actors, and some horrible mistakes within the story. Can't wait to get to the bagpipes, but I'm going to go nuts on that. And we're going to discuss why these films are not worth the Best Film Oscar at all, and they're certainly not worth the Best Director. We're going to explain where the director's gone badly wrong. And I think I'm not going to call Denis Villeneuve a liar. It's simply this: I think I don't think he's done his own research. If he has, he's done it badly. But whoever's feeding him information is feeding him bullshit, and someone should tell him, because he's making him. To me, he looks like a complete idiot. It's as simple as that. Yeah, you've made a fantastic looking film. As I said, my metaphor for it was Zendaya's arse. At that premiere where she turned up in that kind of Soriyama kind of looking outfit. Pretty to look at, but ultimately full of shit. That's the way I looked at it. Sorry, it's a crude way of putting it, but I'm looking forward to doing it. But I think I'm kind of going to approach it from. I suppose the way I'm going to do it, I think ultimately, is to defend Frank Herbert and his book against these films and the people who've made these films, written these films, and have done a fair amount of character assassination over Frank Herbert over the last few years and his ideas. I thought it was particularly interesting that the podcast for the children, was it the recent TV series of Dune? It's being hosted by people who think Frank Herbert's a homophobe. Where do we go from that? There's a lot of negativity have come out about Frank and his ideas, and they're coming from people who aren't that bright, to be honest with you, who have just can't read between the lines, can't put themselves in the place of those times, etc. And the fact that science fiction often presents us with very, very difficult ideas, some of them way out there, but Frank's, absolutely there for that. Whatever you think of Frank and how he does his work, and we've discussed that he's a great thief and a bit of a hypocrite, especially when it came to Star Wars, because everything that he said George Lucas has done, he did himself. And isn't that the thing that you hate? You tend to hate the things in other people that you hate about yourself. But we've discovered how many books and stories and other people's works, even just for names and things, that he's plundered. But it's what he did with it, I suppose. And it's was it they say, bad writers borrow, great writers steal. And Frank is a great writer, to be honest with you. So I'd like to sort of do a commentary in terms of the films, in terms of defending Frank and his work in relation to how these people think. First of all, let's rewrite Frank. And also, I think particularly the gender switching, which is a thing that's already done in the books heavily. How they've messed with gender, and particularly with one character, and have done. I don't think that Denis Villeneuve can do justice to Dune Messiah. I think it's not possible, and he's going to have real problems with Alia. The fact that you don't see her as a baby, to understand her age after 12 years within the story, is that she's a young woman on the cusp of womanhood, if you like, adulthood. She's 15 or 16. We've got an actress who's going to be portraying her who's already much, much older than that. And I think the worst thing was, I think a lot of us wanted to see Ali as a huge part of this story. To not bring her in the first film at all, to swap out Fade with Raban, with the Baron, and the other thing is really just the bulk of the characters. If you run through Dune and look at how often a character appears, look at the number of chapters and the way that they get time in the book, there's a lot of equal time to characters, I think. And I think the Dune film just shut down a lot of these characters and used some really good actors for nothing. I think it's quite a sad state of affairs. But everyone's going to be the 5 stars. This is the greatest film ever made. All of this crap. I'm going to be the dissenting voice here, and I'm quite happy to be. I'm quite happy to not go with the crowd on this one. But I think it's a thing that's polarized long-time Dune fans, and I certainly think my experience in the cinema was not that different from other people's at the time, But there's my review of the part 1 and part 2 is up on the station. And it's a thing that's evolved over time, if you see what I mean. But I think I'm ready to have a proper go at it. And I've been doing the Dune Book Club for we've been at it for years now, to be honest with you. It's kind of amazing how much time has flown. But within that time, I've been concentrating on this and not making Dune videos, not really commenting on all this stuff that's out there. And I'm one of the people that should be. But to be honest with you, I'm not that interested. Hollywood often desecrates and massacres, really good novels and science fiction books in particular. And it's sad, but especially when you have a book of Dune's quality. The first thing you start off with is, this guy's ideas are out of date. He's an old bigot. Sod him. Let's rewrite the first part of his book. Let's change the characters. Let's make them completely different than what they are. And not only that, the fact that it's got one of the most famous beginnings of a book, to rewrite that and set up Leto Atreides, by the way, as a good guy is a complete misunderstanding of the book. Leto Atreides is a scumbag, an absolute scumbag in my opinion. He's set up to be everything you hear about him is propaganda. What he is an absentee father who's never around, who isolates his son. And sends his entire family into a trap and puts all of his eggs into one basket, as they say. He's a stupid man, and he's a mass murderer. The identifier in the book is the point where he later wonders, has he murdered Jessica's father? Him and Thufir have a natter about this. Do you think, my concubine? Do you think is she the traitor? Do you think we killed her parents or something? And the question that they discuss is because, we've done a lot of that. It could be, So the thing is, Leto is in many ways a Janus aspect to the Baron. They're very similar, So I'm looking forward to it, folks. It's all I'm going to do is get a bit of time, and it's going to be an easy thing. So I'm just going to set up and record it. I don't even know if I'll put myself on camera or not. I might just do it as a sound thing, but it will have to be uploaded to YouTube, I suppose. So maybe you'll just, I don't know, maybe just film it as well. I don't know. But most likely I'm just going to record it as a sound thing. I'll stick up a picture and you can watch the film and have this on a separate audio if you like with subtitles. Or just watch it, to see what you think. But I've got lots of things to say about it. I'm not going to be nasty about it, but I'm going to be very critical, I think. And I'm especially critical of how Frank has been treated by Denis Villeneuve's entourage, the whole lot of them publicly. I think it's been pretty bad. And as I always say, Brian Herbert's heavily involved with all of this in the Herbert estate. Brian Herbert, I think, has daddy issues and always has done. Kind of obvious if you read his book. At the same time, he worked with his father and so on. You can't really comment about someone else's relationship with their father if you don't know. But I do think there's been a certain level of character assassination that's gone on with Frank Herbert over the last couple of years. Certainly nothing. You didn't see that with David Lynch's Dune. You didn't see it with the TV miniseries. These people would have praised Frank's work, etc., understood when it was written, what was happening in the world. You have a modern generation of idiots who just think they know everything, and that they're superior, that their rightness, something we were pointing out tonight, thank you, that their rightness on their what they think about Frank Herbert. He was the actress that played Jessica, going around telling everybody about the book and all this stuff, and then admitting on TV that she'd lied to everybody on that. She'd been lying to everybody she talked to. She's never fucking read the thing. Excuse me. It's that level of bullshit, I think, that's come out of the people making Dune, and that they all see it as a big, I don't know, Hollywood's up its own arse too much sometimes, I think. Speaking as a wee man from Northern Ireland. But hopefully it's for you guys as well. We're trying to build as much content here on the station, and we as much as we were wanting to go full on science fiction, what you guys asked for is what you get. So I'm happy to listen to you. You wanted this, so this is why we're doing it. It's maybe not quite the way you thought it would go, but then there's a lot of other Dune book clubs out there that don't go like this. So we like to think that we're unique, and we like to think that we're taking this apart with your help, and always with your help. In a very interesting way. I said I've done a PhD on this stuff, and the amount of things that I have learned doing this book club. Something that Julian was telling me that really smacked me in the face actually was that you get 5 years for a PhD in the States, and here you get 3 and you're out. Where you can, everything's cut off, and if that's tough if you don't, to do what we're doing, it takes years. It's just interesting in terms of what Julian was saying, was if I had the time way back then, I probably would have done this. As much as I took notes and stuff like that, I didn't annotate the books, and what I had to do is focus clearly on certain things, 3 particular themes. So this one, we've been focusing on Frank's writing, all of his ideas, doesn't matter what they are. There's lots of stuff within the Dune series that Frank's gone and looked up that are outside of our own cultural range. So this is a kind of book, these books need picked apart like this to get a good understanding of them, because no matter what your language or culture, or religion, if you're a Dune fan, you guarantee you 100% that there's stuff in there from other cultures that will fly by you, or what, wonder what that word, and a lot of us, my students in particular, tend not to look up words that they don't understand. It's the thing that they tend to guess what they mean, and I think it's kind of interesting. But we have such a melange of ideas within the Dune series. It's gobsmacking, and as much as I can be a wee bit critical of Frank every now and then, I love Frank Herbert to bits. And as Julian might tell you, you don't do a PhD on something you hate. It'll drive you insane. And there's a fair chance, I asked Cara Kennedy this, most people hate the subject that they've done their PhD on by the time they've finished it, and I didn't. And I asked Cara Kennedy, after doing all this work over all these many years, do you hate these books? She went, no, I love them. So we're 2 academics that have come through doing the whole super slog on it and come out at the other end still loving this stuff, and it is great, and it deserves its place in literature. And I think Denis Villeneuve and his people, I'm quite happy that anybody can copy this and post it up wherever you like, need to respect Frank Herbert a bit more, and stop, bashing him for perceptions that are completely wrong. The one that really bothered me recently was that interview with him at one of the universities in America, where he gets asked that question about the Baron Harkonnen, and basically the guy says, did you have to do that to all of us? So the Baron Harkonnen to the questioner is an affront to every single homosexual on the earth. And Frank didn't do that. And he's obviously flustered by the question in the interview. In front of a large, and the person that asked the question set him up. So what they did was they buttered him up with praise first and then dropped a big shitter on him. And he was flustered. But recently had seen that they put sinister music over this and all sorts of things. This was the guys from Gom Jabbar. I was very unhappy about it. You're trying to sort of lend a sort of sinister nature by adding something to this that was never there, But there we go. But anyway, folks, that's us for tonight. I'm sorry about the cut-offs and stuff. I will check out the program and see how the edit has worked after once we're done. I hope you'll be able to join me next week. Next week we're going to do 2 chapters. We're going to have chapter 26 and 27. We're going to come on at 10 o'clock, and it'll also be my birthday. So if you want to join me for my birthday, and a bit of Children of Dune and a bit of Frank Herbert, and we'll maybe see if we can dig up a couple of things for you. I've been reading a little bit around, trying to grab fragments, but I've been trying to reorganize my office because I keep pulling books down, shoving them back up. And what I really do need, I've got up another little table set up here, and I just need I want them out so they're handy all the time, you know. But I'm very good at going, I have a very good memory for, that's in that book. You know, that kind of thing. I have that kind of brain, if you like. I'm often able to go to, I know the book and go grab it like that. And I can tend to pick out books by their spine color. You know, but there we go, folks. I'm a wee bit buzzy tonight because I haven't slept properly in days. I've had a funny out sleep disorder. I hope the disruptions on tonight's program weren't too bad. I'm hoping we're still actually broadcasting because the last time that happened, I talked for 30 minutes on my own. YouTube doesn't always let us know what's going on. But what we will do is we'll say goodnight. And thank you very much, as always, everybody, for joining me. And thanks for your patience with those little glitches. I've figured out today that if you just all the YouTube stuff doesn't ever work, but I've hit refresh and reconnect, and that works. So usually when that happened, we had to just start another program. So there we go. So that's it. Hopefully some things coming for you quite soon. Got to get them done. But we're going to do 2 chapters this week. So next week we'll be doing chapter 26 and 27. 2 good chapters. Again, driving the action forward. Probably shouldn't take us too long to get through. And just because it's my birthday, I might see if I can find something special for you. Who knows? Something Frank Herberty. I'm reading a bit of Frank at the minute outside of the Dune series. I'm reading the White Plague. Kind of enjoying in an amused way some of the Irish stuff in it. Some of the characters are very much stereotypical, though it's a fantastic story. It's up there with the great revenge books, I think. And at the same time, you know something, I found hardly any mistakes in this at all. Found one, actually, I think, so far, because I'm looking for them now. I'm just kind of wondering, is the level of mistakes in these books, does it extend to Frank's other works, you know, and lots of different publishers with the Dune series. But there we go. So G said, cheers, Doc. Thank you, G. Thanks very much for joining us, you know. I said 10 o'clock on Tuesday, folks, at GMT. We'll do chapter 26 and 27. It'll be my birthday. I'll be having a wee bit of a celebration. Nothing too much, but we'll see what we can do and have possibly something interesting for you. If not Frank Herbert related, then possibly sci-fi related, you know. But as I said, look forward to getting those commentaries done and getting them uploaded. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm waffling along. I'll say goodnight, folks. Bojack said, going to be a good one. See you then. Take care. All the best, folks. Take care of yourselves. Look after yourselves. Don't worry too much about Mr. Trump. Keep yourselves safe, and we'll see you all real soon. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye-bye.